Hello everybody, welcome to my post of my 28-gallon JBJ with quad lighting system, in which I'm going to transform it. Right now it's a little dirty. I've had it up and running for about 2 years, and I decided to go fish only, and I set it up with artificial coral reefs and started going with fish and so forth. And then as you add fish and things of nature, had some egg problems at one point in time. So I really didn't know what kind of fish I wanted to do. I didn't run a skim or anything on this. Just a straight up fish tank, saltwater fish tank. That's all this was. And I started out with some triggers and overfeed, the food and the waste that they produce from eating and stuff. I had a lot of a lot of waste accumulating at the bottom of the tank, so obviously algae starts to grow and stuff. So then I decided to take them out and put something else in, and blah 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 blah. So now I'm at a point where the only thing I have in here is actually a goby, a yellowhead goby, and a shrimp and a couple of inverts. Nothing else. And today I'm getting ready to transform my tank to a reef tank. Got 12 years of experience in the business. Started out years ago in a fish store, and I learned all I could about saltwater fish keeping in tanks. Then I started to, by trial and error, like most of us do, played around a little bit and started reading and talking and getting my knowledge that way. And today I feel that I'm a pretty knowledgeable aquarist. Always strive to learn more, and in addition, I became a scuba diver. I'm a master diver. I've dove several reefs in the Caribbean, the Pacific, the Atlantic, and I started getting a conscience about conservation. And I started to see how our reefs are being destroyed by overfishing, by climate changes, global warming, so to speak, how the reefs and the fish populations are diminishing. And then in the same token, the industry itself, the saltwater aquarium industry, where a lot of these species are handpicked right out of the ocean, right out of their environment. And I started getting a little conscious, so that's why I decided to start out with a fish-only tank and got away from the reef. But as technology and awareness started to grow and the industry started getting more and more aware of practicing good conservation, and with the ability to now breed certain species like clownfish and certain gobies, and then having a farm raised, so to speak, and then selling those species, the industry started going in the right direction, if you ask me. In addition with corals, coral fragmentation. So anytime now, if I could buy a coral, I try to buy one that's been fragged and not selected out of the ocean. Those delicate animals, and they tend to not do quite well in home aquariums that the aquarists themselves are not knowledgeable enough. So anyhow, with that being said, I'm getting ready to again take my 28-gallon tank and transform it into a reef aquarium, and I want you to be a part of that transformation. I bought a bunch of new equipment that I'm going to install, and I'm going to walk you through my process, and then hopefully take video clips of it, on certain periods of time, maybe weekly or quarterly or so forth. I'm not sure yet, but hopefully you'll learn a lot, and I'm looking forward to getting your responses, and any feedback would be great. And meanwhile, I'll be looking at other people's posts and so forth and getting knowledge. I've learned a couple of neat tricks that I'm going to incorporate in my setup. Clean my aquarium. I'll take you back to it in just a minute so you can see what it looks like when all the algae's off the glass and so forth. And then I'm going to get ready to transform it. Meanwhile, I wanted to talk to you a little more about good housekeeping rules for maintaining reef aquariums, saltwater aquariums in general. One thing is very, very important up front, outside the aquarium and lighting that you choose, is the water quality. We prefer to use reverse osmosis, which filters water to 99.9% purity. I mean, it gets out all the dissolved solids, minerals, chlorine, any type of phosphates, just very, very pure water. I'm using a captive purity 3-stage RO system, and I've set it up in my garage, tapped it into my water line at my hot water heater area, and I've got my own little nozzle there, and then as you see, it runs through those 3 stages, as well as the membrane, RO membrane is up top there. And I got a TDS meter to help me monitor to make sure my water purity output is has nothing in it. And then I go ahead and I have a 65-gallon holding tank here, holds RO water. My system makes about 65 gallons per day, so it takes about a day to fill this thing up. And I got a 20-gallon tank, so it might take me a month and a half to actually use all this water, maybe even a little bit longer. And as you can see, I got me a little nozzle there. You get these holding tanks. I went online and found a chemical company. It's basically a chemical tank, and they got 65, 100 gallon, 50 gallon, 25 gallons, you know, whatever. If it suits your needs, I grabbed me a 65 gallon. Should have went with a 100 gallon, but 65 gallons is adequate unless you decide to get a bigger tank. Not sure if I'm going to do that in the future. I don't know. So right now, you would add this little nozzle there. Very simple. Drilled a 1-inch hole. Had a bulkhead, and then it's a PVC pipe and a whatever that thing is called. Right there, yeah, got it on there now, so excuse me, sorry, my mind went blank. But, and what I'm getting ready to do now is I'm getting ready to add more substrate to my aquarium to begin the process of transforming into a reef tank. I like very thick sand beds. A scientist over in the Netherlands, got his name, believed in a plenum system. I'm not going to use a plenum system, but I'm going to, because I'm going to keep burrowing type fish species in my tank, and when you have a plenum, you don't want the bed above it disturbed to release all that dissolved oxygen that's in the plenum. You don't want to release that into your tank. Some scientists say that's going to cause havoc in your tank, and some don't think it'll do anything. But over time, when you have a deep sand bed, that actually is more beneficial. It actually helps to break down nitrate further to make it a non-toxic substance gas, and it gets released into your tank in the form of methane gas. I know you've probably heard of in the ocean, you know, methane bubbles, you know, exploding out in the ocean, and what that does is disperse oxygen in that space for that moment in time as that methane gas rises, and you'll see little bubbles from time to time that will just tend to come out of your substrate. And it's pretty cool. Little tiny bubbles, nothing big, nothing dramatic, but that's the cool thing. I like to use carob seed aragonite. This is a 20-pound bag. I've got about 20 pounds already in there. I'm going to add another 20 pounds. I'll make it 40 pounds. And I'm going to wash it first, and then I'll add it to my tank. I had to remove some of my inverts out of the tank and put it in a holding bag until I didn't want to cover them with new substrate and risk losing them and so forth. So tanks clip a little bit after I clean off the glass and so forth. As you can see, that's my tank. Very plain. I took all the inverts and put it inside of a plastic bag with water, kept it in there floating. As I'm getting ready to add additional substrate on top of my existing substrate, I didn't want to bury them under 20 more pounds of substrate. One thing a tip I read is when you add the new substrate, mix it in with the old substrate. Don't just throw it on top and leave it there, as it could smother what other living organisms are in your current sand bed by depleting much needed oxygen and things like that. And then over time, we'll begin to have what I'm looking for is a very low oxygen bed at the lower half of the substrate to begin breaking down nitrates. And like I said, the plenum is really good. Plenum system. I had a plenum system in a 90-gallon one time, and you can definitely see that the surrounding area around the plenum system, there was no buildup of waste. It was breaking down beautifully. But then you can tell some of the dead spots in my tank where the water flow wasn't wasn't reaching, you could tell the buildup. So it's kind of interesting how everything, how the ecosystem, how balanced it was in certain areas versus other areas, which gets another point about water flow. We'll get into that in a little bit. But right now I just wanted you to see my tank before I get ready to transform it. Again, it's a JBJ 28 gallon quad lighting system. I talked to JBJ today. I've had the tank again like 2.5 years now, and I can actually upgrade the hood to the LED system. And I might do that. I'm not really sure exactly yet what type of corals I want to keep. I kind of feel like I want to keep some SPS corals, like a bird's nest and so forth, as I want to get a couple clown gobies, which then goes into my other point, you know, preparation and planning. That's very, very important. Saltwater fish are very fickle species. Certain specimens can go with certain specimens. Certain ones require certain things in your aquarium. Certain amounts of certain size tanks are required. Certain parameters. A lot of these fish are territorial, and a lot of them are prone to certain diseases. So you just gotta know what you're doing. I intend to actually set up a reef system with nano-type fish. And again, the reason why I can't use a plenum is I plan on getting a jawfish. A bluehead jawfish will probably be one of the most expensive fish I'll have in this tank. And they like to burrow pretty much to the bottom of the substrate. And with the plenum, if I have that low oxygen area that's blocked off from the rest of the substrate, it could release potentially hazardous gases and things of that nature. We don't want that in my tank. So I'm just going to go with a deep sand bed again. Alright, so my next video I'll probably be showing you my transformation over a period of time. Until then.